Welcome to this deep dive. You guys sent in some seriously fascinating stuff about cybercrime and cybersecurity. We're even going to be diving into a Spanish radio show featuring a top expert from the Guardia Civil. Get ready to unpack some of the latest trends in cybercrime, the fight to stop it, and why everyone's suddenly desperate for cybersecurity talent. Oh, and we got to talk about Google buying a security company for a ridiculous sum of money, and a teenage hacker who was dead set on getting into the Guardia Civil's network.
Yeah, that last part sounds like something right out of a movie.
I know, right? So let's set the scene. Our main source here is a Spanish radio show called Cyber After Work, hosted by Eduardo Castillo. He's got some pretty big names in cybersecurity on the show with him, like Pablo San Emeterio and Mónica Valle. But the real standout guest is Lieutenant Colonel Juan Antonio Rodríguez Álvarez Sotomayor. Try saying that 3 times fast. He leads the cybercrime unit of the Guardia Civil Bureau.
Wow, talk about insider access.
Yeah.
What exactly were they discussing on the show?
They dug into 2 major cybercrime operations in Spain, and Lieutenant Colonel Álvarez Sotomayor shared some seriously insightful stuff about the latest trends in cybercrime, especially how these criminals are targeting businesses and stealing sensitive data.
That's something every business leader should be paying attention to, for sure.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity is not just an IT issue anymore. It's a business risk that needs to be taken seriously at the highest levels.
Absolutely. Speaking of taking cybersecurity seriously, remember that huge acquisition I mentioned earlier? Get this. Google is about to spend a mind-blowing $23 billion to buy Wiz, this Israeli cybersecurity startup. That's the most Google, or Alphabet as they're now known, has ever paid for a company. Ever.
And what's so fascinating is that Wiz is only 4 years old. That tells you something about the rapid pace of innovation in cybersecurity and how much companies are willing to invest to protect their data, particularly in the cloud. Wiz specializes in cloud security. And as more companies move their operations online, this type of expertise is becoming absolutely essential.
Yeah, it really highlights how vital cloud security is becoming. This acquisition is like a major signal. It's like Google is saying, hey, the future of cybersecurity is in the cloud.
Yeah.
And they're putting their money where their mouth is. What do you think this means for the future of cybersecurity?
I think we're going to see a wave of investments and acquisitions in the cloud security space. It's going to become even more intertwined with traditional cybersecurity. And companies that can offer comprehensive solutions that cover both on-premise and cloud environments are going to be in very high demand.
Okay, now let's dive into that first cybercrime operation they discussed on Cyber After Work. It led to the arrests of 2 individuals who were linked to over 100 cyberattacks. And they were targeting both public and private organizations.
Wow, 100 attacks. That's a lot. What were they going after?
It seems like they were targeting anything and everything. Government agencies, businesses, you name it, they probably tried to hit it. And get this. One of the hackers actually used the alias Guardia Civil X.
Oh, wow. It's like he was taunting the very organization trying to catch him. Some hackers seem to have a real sense of bravado. But what was their ultimate goal? Were they just out to cause chaos? Or was there something more to it?
It seems like money was the primary motivator. These hackers were selling stolen data and access to compromised systems on those underground cybercrime marketplaces that exist on the dark web. And get this, they even had access to SARA, which is Spain's government communications network.
That's a significant escalation. It's not just about stealing data anymore. It's about creating a whole underground economy where criminals can buy and sell the tools and access they need to launch even more sophisticated attacks and access to a government communications network. That's a whole other level of concern. Who knows what kind of sensitive information was compromised?
Yeah, that's exactly what Lieutenant Colonel Álvarez Sotomayor was talking about on the show. He said that they're seeing a huge surge in young, tech-savvy individuals between 15 and 30 years old getting involved in cybercrime. And they're not just doing it for kicks, they're making serious money.
It's like cybercrime has become a distorted career path for some. The entry barrier is relatively low if you have the technical skills, and the potential for short-term financial gain is incredibly high, which can be a really powerful lure.
Yeah, it is pretty alarming. Lieutenant Colonel Álvarez Sotomayor even mentioned a 15-year-old who was obsessed with hacking into the Guardia Civil network. He was actively searching for credentials on the dark web. It makes you wonder, where are these young people learning these skills?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Are they picking it up through formal education, online communities, or are they self-taught? We need to understand how people are getting involved in cybercrime if we want to effectively address the issue.
And it's not just about finding these individuals. Lieutenant Colonel Álvarez Sotomayor also pointed out that platforms like Telegram have become major hubs for cybercriminals. They're using these platforms to connect, organize, and share information. It makes you wonder, what are the challenges for law enforcement in an environment like that?
That's definitely one of the biggest hurdles for sure. Platforms like Telegram prioritize user anonymity and are often hesitant to cooperate with law enforcement agencies. It makes it incredibly difficult to track down these criminals and gather the evidence they need for prosecution. They basically just vanish into the digital ether.
Okay, so let's move on to that second cybercrime operation that they discussed on the show. This one involved a cybercriminal who managed to steal data from 37,000 customers of an energy company. Turns out this guy is a bit of a legend in the Spanish cybercrime scene. They call him Alcasec.
A repeat offender. What's interesting here is that this case perfectly highlights what Lieutenant Colonel Álvarez Sotomayor was saying about supply chain attacks. Criminals are increasingly targeting third-party vendors with weaker security measures as a way to gain access to larger organizations.
It's like that old saying, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And what's even scarier is that many companies either don't realize they've been breached, or they're too afraid to report it because of the potential damage to their reputation. They think sweeping it under the rug will make it go away, but it just allows the problem to fester and grow.
You're absolutely right. That reluctance to report incidents is a major problem. It lets cybercriminals continue operating without consequence, and it prevents us from getting an accurate understanding of the true scale and scope of the problem. We need to create an environment where companies feel safe reporting these incidents so we can learn from them and improve our collective defenses. Otherwise, we're just fighting blind.
It definitely feels like we need a more open and collaborative approach to tackling this whole cybercrime thing. But this deep dive isn't just about businesses and law enforcement. You, our listener, you're a key part of this conversation too. What really stood out to you from the radio show about what individuals can do to protect themselves? I know Mónica Valle had some really practical advice.
Oh yeah, she did. It all boils down to awareness. People need to understand the risks they face in the digital world and how to protect themselves. Basic cybersecurity hygiene is absolutely essential.
Okay, so break it down for us. What are some of the most important things people should be doing?
Well, it might sound obvious, but using strong passwords is crucial. And I mean strong passwords, not your pet's name or your birthday. A good password manager can be a lifesaver here. And be careful about what links you click on, especially in emails or text messages. If something looks even remotely suspicious, it's best to err on the side of caution.
So it's like being street smart, but for the internet. You've got to be aware of your surroundings and not fall for any shady tricks.
Exactly. And keeping your software up to date is essential. Those updates often include security patches that fix vulnerabilities that hackers could exploit. Don't put off those updates. They might be a little annoying, but they could save you a lot of trouble in the long run.
Mónica Valle also talked about something called multi-factor authentication. Is that really necessary? It seems like kind of a hassle.
It can be a bit of an extra step, but trust me, it's worth the effort. Multi-factor authentication adds another layer of security by requiring you to provide more than just your password to log in. It usually involves getting a code sent to your phone or email, or using a biometric scan like your fingerprint. This makes it much harder for hackers to get into your accounts, even if they somehow manage to steal your password.
Okay, so it's like having 2 locks on your door instead of just one. It makes sense. So we've talked about what companies can do and what individuals can do. What about law enforcement? Are they making any progress in the fight against cybercrime? I imagine it must be incredibly difficult to track down these criminals in the vastness of the internet.
It is. Lieutenant Colonel Álvarez Sotomayor highlighted some of the biggest challenges they face. The global nature of cybercrime makes it incredibly tough to catch the perpetrators, especially when they operate from countries with weak law enforcement or little cooperation with international authorities.
Yeah, and I bet those anonymous platforms like Telegram don't make things any easier. It's like they're designed to make criminals disappear into the digital shadows.
It's definitely a cat-and-mouse game. But despite these challenges, law enforcement is making progress. We're seeing more international collaboration, which is absolutely key. Countries are starting to realize that they can't fight this battle alone. They need to share information and resources to effectively track down these criminals.
That's good to hear. Lieutenant Colonel Álvarez Sotomayor did seem fairly optimistic about the future. He said they're getting better at disrupting cybercrime operations and bringing the perpetrators to justice.
And it's not just about arrests and prosecutions. It's also about prevention. A lot of law enforcement agencies are now working closely with businesses and the public to raise awareness about cyber threats and provide guidance on how to stay safe online. It's a multi-pronged approach.
That makes sense. It's like they're trying to build a stronger immune system for the internet, so to speak.
Exactly. It's about creating a more resilient digital ecosystem where everyone plays a role in protecting themselves and others.
You know, in addition to everything we've already talked about, I've also been reading about the role of artificial intelligence in cybersecurity. It seems like AI has the potential to be a real game changer. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
It's definitely a fascinating area, and it's evolving rapidly. AI is being used to analyze vast amounts of data and identify patterns that humans might miss, making it a really powerful tool for detecting and responding to threats in real time. Think of it like having a superpowered security guard that can see everything happening on your network at once.
Wow, that's incredible. So is AI the ultimate solution to the cybercrime problem then?
Well, not quite. It's important to remember that AI is only as good as the data it's trained on. And cyber criminals are constantly evolving their tactics, finding new ways to evade detection. It's an ongoing arms race.
So it's not a silver bullet, but it's a powerful weapon in the arsenal.
Exactly. AI can be a really valuable tool for strengthening our defenses. But it's not a substitute for human expertise and vigilance.
You know what really struck me from all of this is just how personal cybersecurity has become. It's not just about protecting corporate networks and government systems anymore. It's about protecting our identities, our finances, our privacy. It's about safeguarding our digital lives.
You're absolutely right. Cybercrime has very real consequences for individuals. A data breach can lead to identity theft, financial ruin, and even reputational damage. It's something we all need to take seriously.
Yeah, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this. Where do we even begin?
The key is to just start somewhere. Even if it's just taking small steps. Change your passwords. Enable multi-factor authentication. Be mindful of what you click on. Those small actions can make a big difference.
It's about empowering ourselves to take control of our own cybersecurity.
Exactly. It's about being proactive, staying informed, and making smart choices online. We can't just passively wait for something bad to happen. We need to take charge of our own digital security.
You've given us a lot to think about today. It's been eye-opening, to say the least.
It's a complex issue, and it's constantly evolving. But the more we understand about the threats we face and the steps we can take to protect ourselves, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the digital world safely and securely.
It really does feel like knowledge is our best defense in this crazy digital world. We've talked about the tactics and the threats, but I think it's also important to understand the economics of cybercrime. You know, the sheer amount of money involved really brings home the scale of the problem.
You're absolutely right. The numbers are staggering. It's estimated that cybercrime will cost the global economy trillions, with a T, trillions of dollars annually in the coming years. And that's just the direct financial costs.
Yeah.
We also have to factor in the loss of trust, the disruption to businesses, and the potential impact on national security. It's a massive problem with far-reaching consequences.
Trillions of dollars, it boggles the mind. So where does all that money go? Are these cyber criminals living lavish lifestyles? Like something out of a movie?
Well, some high-profile cybercriminals might indulge in extravagant spending. But the reality is often more complex. Many cybercriminals reinvest their profits into developing even more sophisticated tools and techniques. They're constantly innovating, which makes it even harder for law enforcement to keep pace.
So it's almost like they're running a business, except their product is crime.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And just like legitimate businesses, cybercriminals are collaborating and forming networks. We're seeing more and more evidence of cybercriminal gangs working together, sharing expertise and resources. It's a disturbing trend.
It makes you wonder, what does the future hold? Is cybercrime just going to keep growing and growing? It feels a bit like we're fighting a losing battle sometimes.
It's true that cybercrime is constantly evolving and becoming more sophisticated, but I wouldn't say it's a losing battle. The key is to stay ahead of the curve. We need to anticipate their next move, invest in research and development, and foster a global culture of cybersecurity awareness. It's an ongoing challenge, but I believe we can make a difference.
So if you could give our listener one piece of advice, one key takeaway from this entire deep dive, what would it be?
Be proactive. Don't wait for something bad to happen before you start taking cybersecurity seriously. Take steps to protect yourself, your family, your business. Stay informed about the latest threats and best practices. Educate yourself and those around you. And remember, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility. We all have a role to play in creating a safer digital world.
That's a great message to end on. It's empowering to know that we're not powerless in this fight. We can all take steps to protect ourselves and contribute to a more secure online environment.
Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive into the world of cybercrime and cybersecurity. It's been a fascinating, albeit somewhat unsettling, journey. Thank you for joining us. And remember, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe in the digital world.